Imagine a city going silent. Not the quiet of night, not snowfall, something else. The kind of silence where a double-decker bus stops in the middle of the road because the driver can't see the curb 3 feet ahead of him, where children are told not to open the windows, where the smell thick, sulfurous ancient reaches you before anything else does. You step outside, and the city of London has disappeared. In the years after the Second World War, London wore its scars quietly. Neighborhoods bombed to rubble had been rebuilt in haste. Rationing had only just ended. There was exhaustion in the city, but also stubborn pride. London had survived, and it had not forgotten how to live. The streets were busy again. Corner pubs filled up on Friday evenings. Women pushed prams along the pavements of Lambeth. Black cabs crawled through Piccadilly. It was 1952, and winter was coming. For Londoners, coal was not a luxury. It was survival. Every morning, millions of fireplaces were loaded and lit. Smoke rose from terraced houses in long gray columns. The city ran on coal. The city breathed it. There was a word for what the air sometimes became: pea souper, a yellowish fog the locals had lived with for generations. Victorian novels had given it Gothic glamour. By the 1950s, it was simply part of London, moody, atmospheric, English. Nobody thought it was beautiful, but nobody thought it would kill them. The fog arrived on Thursday, December 4th, quietly, without announcement. A cold anticyclone had settled over southern England, trapping warm air just above the city. Below it, the air sat completely still. And then, the smoke came from 1.5 million fireplaces, from the Battersea Power Station, from the steam trains rolling into Waterloo and Victoria. The city's own exhaust had nowhere to go. It pooled. By Friday morning, it was no longer fog. It pressed against windows, seeped under doors. An opera performance at the Criterion Theatre stopped mid-act because the audience couldn't see the stage. At Smithfield Market, cattle began to suffocate. Ambulances stopped running. Cinemas closed. Visibility dropped to a foot, then less. People walked with one hand trailing the wall of a building just to know where they were. Others described tasting it. Something metallic, something chemical. Not fog, not anymore. Inside hospitals, the wards began to fill. First came the elderly, children with asthma. Then they came faster. Nurses worked double shifts. Oxygen ran critically low. Doctors watched patients turn blue at the lips, their lungs unable to find anything clean in the air around them. The smog had become a chemical reaction. Sulfur dioxide from coal mixed with fog moisture to form sulfuric acid, soot particles small enough to bypass the body's defenses and embed directly in lung tissue. Every breath was a slow, invisible dose. And the government said nothing. Officials suggested the deaths were from cold weather, from influenza, from coincidence. The Ministry of Health issued no warnings. The newspapers called it a weather story. But in the morgues, coffins were running out. Florists had no flowers left. They'd already sold them all for funerals. When the smog finally broke on December 9th, swept away by a westerly wind, 4,000 people were already dead. In the weeks that followed, that number climbed past 12,000. Some estimates reached 13. 12,000 people, 1 week, 1 city, peacetime. When the air cleared, Londoners stepped outside as if checking the world was still there. It was, but the grief was vast, even if carried quietly. Families had lost grandparents, parents, infants, people who had been fine the week before. Then came the anger. Why had nothing been done? Why no warning? Harold Macmillan, then housing minister, had privately written that he hoped the issue might blow over. He thought it was manageable, a political embarrassment, not a humanitarian catastrophe. He was wrong. The pressure didn't fade. The death toll was too large, too documented, too undeniable. In 1956, Parliament passed the Clean Air Act, one of the first pieces of modern environmental legislation anywhere in the world. It established smokeless zones, restricted the worst-burning domestic coals, and set industrial emission standards. Imperfect, contested, but real. The principles it established that air is a shared resource, that pollution is a public health matter, that governments are responsible for what their citizens breathe would spread. The U.S. Clean Air Act of 1970 drew directly from the British experience. Global environmental law traced part of its origin back to 1 week in December 1952. Science changed too. The Great Smog became a cornerstone of epidemiology proof, brutal and irrefutable, that pollution doesn't just dirty the air, it shortens lives. It enters the body and stays. There is a photograph taken during the smog. A man in a long coat walking along the embankment. The Thames behind him is invisible. The street lamp above glows in a corona of yellow-gray light, illuminating almost nothing. Head slightly bowed, hands in his pockets. He looks ordinary. He looks like someone who has no idea history is happening around him. That's the part that stays. Because the Great Smog wasn't a bomb or a battle. It was weather and coal, and a civilization that had decided the sky was a place to put its waste and had never been forced to reckon with what that cost. Every year, the World Health Organization estimates 7 million people die from air pollution, not from named events, from the ordinary, daily accumulation of exhaust and industry, the slow background hum of a world that still runs, in large part, on burning things. The man in the photograph just walked home through the fog, the way people do when fog is all there is. But we have the record. We have the 12,000. We have the silence that came before the counting. The question it leaves behind isn't complicated. What are we waiting for? If this story made you think or made you feel something, hit the like button. It takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps more people find this channel. And if you want more stories like this, moments in history that don't make the textbooks, but probably should subscribe, we cover the events that shape the modern world, told the way they deserve to be told. New video every week. We'll see you there.